Hello, Bonjodi, and welcome to the Cruise Ship Diaries, the podcast where I, Gary Walsh, talk all things cruise ships, what it's like to live and work on board a cruise ship. Now, you can follow us on all social medias at the Cruise Ship Diaries on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And please subscribe, follow, and review, rate wherever you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode, I'm going to reintroduce myself as the host, and I will explain a little bit about how the podcast has changed. We've been here a little while now, but we've had a little bit of a rebrand, and we're going to start again, in a sense. Lots of the episodes that I've done, lots of the interviews that I've done, should I say, are still uploaded. So they're going to be series 1 of everything that has gone before, but from now on, we're going to be series 2, the Cruise Ship Diaries, and I'm going to get into it and tell you all about me, my journey at sea, and some fun stories, anecdotes, and also where I am now and what I'm doing. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can see that I am in a dressing room, so I am currently on a ship, but I will tell you all about that once we get into the episode. So sit back, all aboard, because this is my first entry into the Cruise Ship Diaries. Alright, let's get into it. Hello, welcome everybody. For those of you coming across this podcast for the first time, hello, my name is Gary Walsh. I hail from the northeast of England in a small town called Heaven, and I am a cruise ship performer. Have been on and off for the past nearly 14 years now, and I have decided I wanted to do this podcast quite a long time ago, and I've been contemplating it over many, many years to do it. But it was always finding the right time. And I actually started the podcast when I had an idea of leaving cruise ships. So the previous name was What a Load of Ship. So I've decided to change that because that's it's got a bit of a negative connotation on it. And the play on of words is quite negative. Whereas I am back on cruise ships, and I am absolutely loving it, and I don't really intend to leave for quite some time, but I still want to do this podcast, and lots of people have lots of stories to tell. I have stories to tell, and the reason I really wanted to do this is kind of like, I came into cruise ships not having a clue what I was letting myself in for, and that's the case for like many crew members. They don't know what they're letting themselves in for. You don't know what the life is like at sea, what the workload is like, what the social life is like. And podcasts are a big thing right now, and a great way of educating people rather than like revealing stories. I want this podcast to be more of an educational media, really. So that's kind of why we're here. That's kind of what we're doing. My sister wants to go into performing on cruise ships as a performer, and obviously I can tell her all of my stories, but I have so many different friends and so many colleagues and so many people around the world who work and live on cruise ships that I want my sister and the next generation of people coming into cruise ships knowing what they're letting themselves in for. That's all this is. As well as just kind of now, in a way, documenting what I do on a daily basis. Well, not on a daily basis, but like every few weeks or every couple of weeks. I have some fantastic interviews lined up for you all with some amazing people. And like I said in the introduction, I already have episodes out from the previous branding of the podcast. So this episode is just kind of like me reintroducing myself, reintroducing the podcast, what we're all about, so that when you do listen to the interviews, you have an idea of me and what I am bringing to the interviews with my experience and my knowledge. So yeah, that's kind of what this is. It's what it's all about. And this is not throwing we're not here to throw shade on any companies or any cruise line or any specific ship. This is more like of a reflection and letting people know that, we post on social media all the time. We, like, everybody, no matter what you do in life, everybody always posts the good times, and I definitely do that as a person who works on a cruise ship and who has the luxury of going to these beautiful countries and beautiful places around the world. But I don't sit there on Instagram or TikTok and talk about how lonely I feel at times, or the food is in the mess isn't the best every single day, and like how restricting it is to live on a cruise ship, and how I miss my friends and how I miss my family. So this is kind of like basically why I've called it the Cruise Ship Diaries. This is my diary entry, and allowing people to come on the podcast, the guests that I have, for them to enter their story into this diary. And hopefully one day, I really want to write a book. That's like my aim, about working at sea, the pros and the cons. So yeah, that's kind of what this is. This is what this is all about, and why I have the podcast. So how this is going to work from now on, I am going to sit down and talk to you every other week, about kind of give you an update on the current ship that I'm on, which I'll get to in a minute, and kind of little anecdotes and little stories, or something that's like reminded me personally of things. And then, so that's going to be every other week. And then in between that, every other week, I have a fantastic guest lined up, who is going to be entering their story into the Cruise Ship Diary. They're not necessarily always performers, not singers and dancers. If you look through some of my previous episodes, I have had a youth staff worker, I've had a drummer, I've had an activity manager, as well as the performers as well. So everyone's ship life and experience as a crew member is different. Depends on the ship, depends on the company you work for. Everyone's experience is different, and that is why I want to share it. I've went through a lot of ups and downs over the years, and I want to share those, and also like talk about how the experiences that I've been through have taught me lessons, and how I've grown as a person. Because I started cruise ships when I was 20, and now I'm nearly 34. So I've grown massively as a person in those 13, 14 years. So I want to document that, and I want people to hear the truth. I want people to understand what it's like to live and work on board a cruise ship, and that it's not all, sunshine and rainbows and sprinkles all the time. But I'm also going to tell you about the sunshine and the sprinkles and the rainbows, because it's amazing what we do, and I've done it for so long, and I keep coming back to it because I absolutely love it. So that's kind of where we're going. That's what we're going to do. That's what this podcast is all going to be about. And those of you who have come across this podcast because you're intrigued by cruise ships, obviously we've just had the Netflix documentary come out, The Poop Cruise, and there is a docu-series, I think it is, on in the UK right now that follows crew members on a cruise ship. And obviously the queen of cruise ships, for those of you listening in the UK, is Jane MacDonald, and she is my dream guest. So put that out into the universe that we can get Jane MacDonald on the podcast, which I think is possible. I have actually supported Jane MacDonald once upon a time, so our paths have crossed. But yeah, so it's basically just, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about ship life, what it all entails, and the mad, crazy journey in life that it is. So, yeah, that's what we're going to do. I love it. So obviously this episode today is basically me talking about me. And how I got to where I am, and what that currently looks like where I am today. So I grew up, like I said at the start, in a small town called Hebburn in the northeast of England, just outside of Newcastle. Um, I was a show off as a kid, come from a big family, and the way I got into dancing is because I think my parents were like were looking for some kind of medium for me to express myself. I always loved singing and dancing and getting up on stage when we were on holiday and on vacations and all that sort of stuff. And then a small dance school opened in my local town, and I went there. And then I was kind of scouted for a bigger school within Newcastle City Centre, the Tyne Theatre Stage School, which is where my sister goes now as well. So we've been part of that school for like 25 years. Our family's been involved in that school, so it's I love dancing, I love singing, I love performing. I grew up doing that as a teenager. I was bullied massively for it. Obviously, the comparisons with Billy Elliot, from the northeast town, and yeah, I've had my family were amazing, amazingly supportive. My brothers were supportive. My parents, I honestly don't know where I would be without them. And like, onto like my extended family and my grandparents and aunties, uncles, because everybody, I've got the most loyal friends in the world. So I'm incredibly grateful that even though my childhood and teenage years were hard because I was bullied because I was a dancer, I always had the most amazing support network around me to let me feel sad, and but also like encouraged me to carry on doing what I loved, clearly. I then went on to train professionally. It didn't quite go as smoothly as we would have liked. My training was interrupted just due to circumstances at the time with the faculty at the college I went to, and but however, I was also working while I was training, so I started doing I was in like a cabaret show band, and we toured the UK, we did the holiday parks, we did small theatres, we sometimes did big theatres, we would do working men's clubs, social clubs, pubs, all that sort of stuff, so it was like all singing, all dancing, tributes, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I did that, and then I was 20 years old when I auditioned for my first cruise ship. So let's just get straight into it, because that's what we all want to know about, and I don't want to make this episode too long. So I was 20 when I auditioned for my first ever cruise line, and that was with Kudos Entertainment, who at the time had the shows. They were the producers of the shows on board Celebrity Cruises. First cruise audition, got the job. Thank you very much. Very, very happy. Very, very lucky. And my first cruise ship was the Celebrity Summit. So I did that back in 2012. And it was daunting, like at first. And a lot of people say this in the interviews that I do with them, that you don't know. Obviously, you're excited. You've got the job. You're going to go on a cruise ship. It's amazing. It's what you've always wanted to do. But they don't tell you all of the things you do before you go on a cruise ship. You have to get a medical, and at the time, and depending on the company you work for now, that medical can cost up to £600, which is a lot of money for a 19, 20-year-old. You don't have that money. You have to get visas. So you've got to get a C1D visa, which allows you to work in American waters. You have to get a B1, B2 visa if your rehearsals are in America, and that allows you to be in America to work, or at least to train. So the costs add up for those, like for the documents and for the official side of things. But then you've also, you've got to have the clothes to wear on the cruise ship. Like on an evening, you dress a lot smarter. Depending on your itinerary, are you going to buy loads of beachwear and get loads of Boohoo Man cords like I did? So it costs a lot of money to accept a cruise ship job, especially as a performer, I would say, because we don't necessarily always have a uniform. So yeah, those are the things that we didn't expect. So obviously I'm like 20 years old. Yeah, I'd worked a few years, but I wasn't really great with money. So I had to ask my dad for money. I asked my parents for money, and I'm very lucky in that they were and still are in a position to be able to do that for me. So yeah, that's that. That's before you even start. So for anyone who is about to go and audition for cruise ships this year, I would say have £1,000 in your back pocket, which is a lot of money to a young person just coming into the industry and just starting their career. But I would say have a backup of £1,000, depending on the cruise line that you're working for your medical and your visas and the travel. Obviously, I'm from Newcastle, just outside, so I would have to travel up and down to London to get the medical, to get the visas at the London embassy. So yeah, that's my first piece of advice: is save a lot of money up before you go on board. And also once you get on board, or once you start rehearsals, you might not get paid for a little bit into that. You might have to wait 3, sometimes 4 weeks to even get paid. But the cruise lines do, well, they should tell you that and make sure that you are aware of, the financial situation that you're about to find yourself in if you're not going to be paid for a little while. But yeah, so that's my first bit of advice. I worked for Celebrity Cruises. I did 2 contracts with Celebrity Cruises as a production cast dancer. And then Celebrity Cruises decided to go in-house. So they no longer required the English production company that I worked for to produce their shows for them. So we were all obviously then out of a job, so to speak. But the Kudos, the production company, then obtained the contract with Cunard Cruises. So I moved with the production company rather than staying with the cruise line. And I went and did a couple of contracts on Cunard. I built my way up to being company manager, which is basically like an elevated version of the dance captain. So I was the dance captain, but also like the manager of the cast as well. So I would do like the scheduling and all that sort of stuff. I then came and worked for Carnival. I did a contract for Carnival. I wanted to sing more. I wasn't going to get the opportunity to sing for the company that I was working for at the time, which in a way is a compliment because they valued me too much as an asset as a dancer, but I wanted to push as a singer. So I came over to Carnival, and unfortunately at the time didn't have a great experience. So I left that contract. Just people, timing, personal relationships, it just wasn't the right fit for me at the time. And that's another thing to like remind people about cruise ships. Like, you're under contract, but it's not prison. If it's not for you and you don't want to be there, you don't have to be there, So yeah, I left that contract and then went back to Kudos, went back to the British production company. And then various things happened, and over the years, like, I've progressed in my career. I then moved over to Morella Cruises with Peel Talent. I was dance captain there and became an assistant choreographer. I taught and installed the shows on board one of their ships, which was an amazing experience. Like, I will probably get into that in a different episode, but I'm just trying to give you the briefest explanation of my past that I possibly can for this episode. And then I decided to take some time off from cruise ships. I decided to open my own dance school in the northeast of England, and with the help of guests that I met, they invested in me and my idea of a production company. But this was just bad timing because we did this a month before COVID. So it didn't quite get its feet off the ground. And obviously COVID was a massive struggle in time. I had to close my school and we didn't do anything with the company. So I did a lot of like land-based jobs. Bear in mind, between all of these cruise ships, I've either done a panto or some kind of like musical tour within the UK or Europe. So I've done a lot of theatre in the UK as well. I haven't just solely worked on cruise ships my whole life. And then I decided that after various different roles within the industry, that I wanted to come back to cruise ships back in 2022, I think it is. What year are we now? Yeah, 2022. And I submitted my audition material through my agent. I've got an agent, ESC Management, absolutely wonderful, the most amazing agent in the world, Emma Joy. Um, and we submitted to Celebrity Cruises. And I was offered a job instantly. Now, I hadn't worked for Celebrity Cruises for 10 years, so it was very wild to go back. And then did two more contracts with them. And the company was going in a way that they were. I was singer dancer when I went back to Celebrity Cruises, and they were getting rid of that role. And like a few things happened, a few altercations on board, and I was really unhappy. So didn't complete that contract. On with my last contract with Celebrity. And I was like, I'm done with ships, which I've said so many times over the years. I'm done with ships. I'm not going back. I'm going to go back home. And I worked in a bar at home. And then my friend reached out last summer, and she was like, Gary, Carnival are like really need male performers. You should submit yourself if you're not still doing anything else, or you're not still working for Celebrity. Um, and because I'd had such a bad experience with Carnival before, I was really reluctant. But I also knew that what I was doing at home wasn't quite working for me, and I still had that little bit of an itch to perform. So I submitted my material through again an online audition process to Carnival, and 10 days later I was in Florida rehearsing with the cast. And that was on board the Carnival Venezia. That was my last ship. And amazing experience. It took me a while to adapt. Carnival is very different to the other cruise lines that I've worked for, Celebrity and Cunard. I see there's kind of like a class system with cruise lines, and because I'd worked for kind of like the upper class cruise lines, where I guess the guests are, I don't know how to say it. I don't know how it's, because the cruises are a lot more expensive. The clientele of the cruise line are less boisterous. I'm gonna put it that way. But obviously Carnival are known for fun, so you're gonna have a lot more fun, and you get more fun people and guests on board Carnival Cruise Line. So that's why it's so different, because Carnival is very family, fun, orientated, party vibes, whereas the other cruise lines that I've been on, although they do have their deck parties and they do have all that sort of stuff, it's a little bit more elevated on Carnival, so it is different. So it did take me time to adapt. There's a lot of differences from Carnival that I work for now and other cruise lines in, like, the privileges that we get on board, and the mess, and just the way the shows are conducted, and the running of the ship, everything like that. So it took me a little while to adapt, but they won me round in the end. I think I've been so uptight my whole life and my whole career, like always striving for perfection, whereas no one's perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, unless you're drawing a line with a ruler, So I've learned to let go of a lot of things. I would, early on in my career, and even like a couple of years ago, I was always that person who would speak up. And because I'm a Geordie, because I'm from Newcastle, we have a very strong accent, so that is misinterpreted quite a lot of the time, especially if I'm being very passionate about something, which has always been hard for me to comprehend, that people misinterpret me or misunderstand me just purely because, I sound a lot more assertive and aggressive, I guess, than I am being or mean to be. So I've definitely learned that, and the people that I had with me on board my last ship on Venezia definitely mellowed me out and helped me with that. And I feel like I've definitely overcome that. So really had a great experience on Venezia. It's ups and downs, but every contract is. And now, here I am. For those of you watching on YouTube, I'm in the dressing room, and I am currently on board the Carnival Freedom, again as a dancer singer. But this time I am also the wardrobe captain. So I am responsible for the laundering of all the costumes, the washing, the laundry boy as my dad calls it, and also maintaining the standard and the quality of the costumes. So, if anything rips or anything tears, or as a zip doesn't work, I'm the person who is responsible for fixing that within the cast, and also the general look and presentation of the aesthetic on stage, not choreography, not the vocals or anything like that, just the look of the cast members and their costumes. And it's been a while since I've had a role of responsibility on board a cruise ship. Um, Usually I've always been like dance captain or something like that, so it's hard as a senior member. Obviously, I've done this for a very long time, and the older that I've got, the younger everybody else coming in is. So it's hard for me to, you know, not be that person that is back in my day when I started cruise ships, which I do quite often, to be fair. But it's hard not to be that person. And that's kind of what's kind of got me in bother over the past couple of years since I returned. But now I feel like because I've got a little bit of responsibility within this cast and on this contract. I am also a lot older than a lot of the people, so I do feel a sense of responsibility in doing my job and working really cohesively and well alongside the vocal captain, cast manager, and the dance captain. So we have to be like a strong unit, and to the team. So I do feel that sense of responsibility, and then again with the younger people, setting an example. I haven't always been the greatest of examples as a senior member of a company, and as a cast. Whereas here, I'm really happy to be here. I'm really grateful to be here. That I feel that sense of responsibility, and I'm doing everything in my power to be the best person that I can be the best performer that I can be, and be the best influence on the team members around me, the people that I share the dressing room with, the people that I see and work with every single day throughout the duration of my contract. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm very content. I'm single, very single. I am straight, for those of you wondering. um, I'm sure that I will get to various different relationships that I've been through, that I've had over the years on cruise ships. Um, I would just like to point out that I will never out anybody. I will never mention anyone's names on this podcast. Obviously, I've mentioned the companies that I've worked for, but during some of the stories that I may tell in future podcasts, I might not necessarily mention which cruise line it was or which ship it was. So if you want to try and find out, you can just scroll back through my social medias and work it out for yourselves. But yeah, I'm currently working on board, and the reason obviously I said at the start, the reason I wanted to start this podcast was because I was kind of like, I wanted to reveal the truth of what it's like to live and work on board cruise ships, because at the time I was ready to leave and was really unhappy, whereas now, obviously, I have to watch what I say because I'm under contract and I work for a company, and I have to be respectful of that, which of course I am and will be throughout the duration of me doing this podcast. But I also, I feel a sense of responsibility to also be truthful and honest to a degree. So, yeah, that's where we are. That's what we're doing. I feel like I might have lost my trail of thought there at the end. But I'm ready to bring you all on this journey with me, and very, very excited. Yeah, so I'll tell you lots of various different things as the weeks go on. Like I say, every other week is going to be me sitting here talking to you about the experiences that I've been through, and then in between that, every other week will be an interview with a fantastic guest. I've got some amazing people lined up for you all. Oh, excuse me, and lots more to come as well. So that's it. I don't want to keep you forever. I just kind of, for those of you just joining me, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is where I am in my life. And I'm very happy, I'm very content, and I plan to work towards building on my reputation within this company and growing within this company. I have aspirations, of course, to be dance captain again, to be a cast manager again, but you have to work for that, and I'm grateful that I am the wardrobe captain, so I have a chance to prove that I can be in a leadership role and do it well. And further up down the line, we're just aiming for those small steps for now, to be dance captain and cast manager. You never know. I would love to be, a supervisor again and teaching the shows or installing the shows. And I also have a dream of being a cruise director. I think that would be really, really cool and really, really fun. And I think I'd be good at that. The hosting, the presenting, and the people engagement, and, managing a team and coaching a team of hosts to, come out of their shells and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, those are like my little aspirations that I'm going to work towards. And you are going to be all coming on this journey with me. I've been very inconsistent in the past in doing this sort of thing, because I feel like a lot of the time my mental health has got in the way, and the content that I put out has then suffered. But I am in the best possible place that I think I've ever been in my life, the most content that I've ever been in my life, the most grateful that I've ever been in my life. And yeah, I'm ready to move forward and prove myself, and also not just prove lots of other people, who might have have had a bad experience with me or heard a bad experience about me. I'm going to prove to myself that, I've always believed that I'm a good person. I've always believed that I am doing the right thing. It's just how you do that. And that is what I am learning and doing now and bettering myself at. And I feel like this is a great platform to share that all with you. I hope those of you who are not from Newcastle or the northeast of England can understand everything that I've talked about and said. But yeah, please join me on this journey. We're going to have vlogs, like if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to have vlogs as well as the podcasts. And then obviously, if you're listening, wherever you're listening to this podcast, I'll put snippets of those little vloggy things in my individual solo diary entries in there as well. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate you all. Welcome to the ride. Welcome to this journey. It's going to be amazing. And I'm so happy that you are coming along with me. Like I said at the start, please follow all our social media pages at The Cruise Ship Diaries on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Like, subscribe, rate wherever you are listening or watching on this podcast. I've been Gary Walsh. This is The Cruise Ship Diaries, Series 2/Series 1, really. Episode 1. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Ciao ragazzi. Ta-ra!